And we're back. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. Looks like we've got about 66 people in the room already. And probably, yeah, it's already growing. So why don't we give it just a minute to allow some people to make their way into the room? And once things get started, we'll kick it off. So let's give it just a minute to allow people to make their way in, and we'll get started. Incidentally, just want to do a quick sound check. How do I sound? Everything's working all right, I hope. I have to do this almost every time because inevitably something goes wrong. Sounds great. Wonderful. Perfect. All right. We'll give it just a minute for everybody to make their way into the room. Excellent. Okay. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. Anyway, we can make some small talk while others are making their way in. Hope everybody had a good weekend or a good week. Some rather interesting things happening throughout the course of this week, obviously, with the impeachment hearings, the kangaroo trial that's going on in D.C. Um, Thankfully, some people still have a semblance of sanity left, uh, so that the the whole proceeding isn't entirely rigged and bogus. But anyway, okay, all right. Why don't we go ahead and yeah, Father Harkins' suicide, absolutely devastating. I can't say for sure what's going on there, but the fact that there were several other seminarians from that particular class that wound up committing suicide as well is very concerning. Um, Makes me wonder. I don't have any facts, but it does wonder. It's pretty awful. Why don't we go ahead and begin with our Hail Mary? In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Our Lady of Victory, pray for us. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Okay. First things first, why don't we go ahead and do some catching up on the various goings on of the Lepanto Institute? Uh, but before I get into that, I'm supposed to make my pitch. If I don't make my pitch, then somebody will kick me in the shins. So, real quick, every week, every Friday, except for times, like when I have a baby or there's Christmas, every Friday we have these regular conversations here on YouTube. Some people have asked why YouTube. Now, YouTube just happens to be a very broad platform. It's easy to use. And they say, yeah, but YouTube gives to Planned Parenthood and they're involved in promoting homosexuality and da 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 da. The fact of the matter is, nothing that we do is actually making any money for YouTube. We don't give them any money. They are not charging for this service. So the use of the platform it's a neutral good. It's neutral in the sense that we are not giving them anything, but it is good in the sense that it gives us a platform to use so that you can have the conversation with us. It's easy to use, and so forth. Anyway, so every Friday we have these conversations. We talk about the things that are going on in the church. We talk about various theological issues. We talk about the research that we are conducting at the Lepanto Institute and helping to introduce people to the various things that are going on. And if you're a member of the inner circle of the Lepanto Institute, then you get to participate in these conversations every week. If you're not, well, we open the doors to the general public about once a month, maybe once every 3 weeks, depending upon the scheduling. But we do open the doors to non-members so that you can see what we do and take a listen to what we have to talk about. And so you can basically decide whether you would like to become an Inner Circle member or not. And if you would like to become an Inner Circle member, here is the link to join. It's just $15 a month. That's far less than a price of Starbucks coffee every day. or even, oh, I don't know, trying to think of something to compare it to, but it's not expensive. If you would like to join, just click the link, become a member, and $15 a month. That's it. You have until Sunday to make a decision. So if you could click the link, if you wanted to click the link now, you could go ahead or wait until after the program. But there it is. I will make the pitch again a couple more times before we close. And then I'll also post the link so that if you like what you see and you want to become a member, you can just click the link at the end of the program and you'll be ready to go. All right. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is some news that is going to be coming up here in the very short term. I haven't told this to anybody yet, and you're the first to find out. But back in December, December the 10th, I sent a letter to Archbishop Christophe Pierre, who is the papal nuncio to the United States, which means he's the one all of the bishops talk to in every diocese. They send him basic reports about what's going on in their dioceses, and then he reports back to Rome. He also is a part of the process of choosing new bishops in the United States for various posts. And his role is supposed to be as the ambassador of the Pope to the United States. He's here in the States. He represents the Pope here, and then he takes information from the bishops here and brings it to the Pope. That's how it works. He also is the one to whom we appeal if there is a serious issue that we are dealing with regarding our own bishops. So, for example, a number of years ago, I produced a report on a particular bishop. I'm not going to give names, but I produced a report on a particular bishop because he had consecrated or given, sorry, I'm blanking out. He had confirmed an individual into the Catholic Church who was transgender. And this individual, during the confirmation ceremony, was wearing women's clothing and women's earrings and a woman's necklace and chose a woman's name at the confirmation. I sent this information to the bishop and I said, I have this report. It's very serious. This individual is still showing up at the church dressed in women's clothing, scandalizing the faithful. And I didn't hear anything back. I didn't get a response. So I packaged everything up and I sent it to the papal nuncio. And it was very quickly after I got confirmation that the nuncio got my information that the bishop suddenly decided that he was going to write me back. And the bishop said, well, thank you very much for this information. This is very disturbing and blah, 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 platitude, platitude, platitude. Promised that he would look into it. I don't know what happened beyond that because I actually wound up going off on several other different projects. But the process is if you have an issue with your bishop, you're supposed to go to the papal nuncio. Well, there is now a problem with the papal nuncio because, as many of you know, I have been covering events regarding the Association of United States Catholic Priests, AUSCP. The AUSCP is just doggedly pushing homosexuality in the church. It's pushing the idea of married priests. It's pushing women's ordination. It's basically a corrosive element within the priesthood in the United States. And its whole push, its whole design is to act as a subculture that is going to change the way the church operates in the United States from within. They are all priests. They've been sending out invitation cards to priests all over the country, trying to get them to join the AUSCP and to participate in their process, blah, blah, blah. Well, every year they have an annual assembly, and it takes place in different places. They were in Atlanta one year. They were in St. Louis this past year. They were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I went. They were in Chicago at one point, and also, did I say Atlanta, Georgia? If I didn't, Atlanta, Georgia. So they've been all over the place. And Every time they've been someplace, they've met with the local bishop. The local bishop has participated in their meetings by saying mass for them, and the talks have all been just pure, unadulterated heterodoxy. Every single one of them is all heterodoxy, and and at some points outright heresy. Okay, so this group is awful. It's terrible. Well, Archbishop Christophe Pierre is slated to join the AUSCP's annual assembly and say mass for them. And my understanding is that he's going to be giving a speech. So now we have the nuncio of the United States, the papal nuncio of the United States, participating in an assembly that is pure horror within the church. It's absolute heresy what's going on there. So here's the letter that I wrote to Archbishop Christophe Pierre. Dear Archbishop Pierre, it has recently come to my attention that you have accepted an invitation from the Association of United States Catholic Priests to preside and preach at the 2020 AUSCP Assembly Mass on June 24th. You may not be aware, but the AUSCP is a gravely dissident organization which promotes homosexuality, supports organizations that promote same-sex marriage, supports open homosexuality in the priesthood, has undermined the authority and decisions made by bishops, and has endorsed the ordination of women to the priesthood. As the president of the Lepanto Institute, I have personally researched and analyzed many of the activities of the AUSCP and published a number of reports and articles on their ideologies and activities. I am including a few of these articles in this letter so that you can see firsthand the pernicious nature of the AUSCP and the grave threat it poses to the faith and to the faithful. I am providing this information to you in the hopes that you will withdraw your participation in the AUSCP's assembly next spring, as your participation would not only raise the profile of this organization, but give the impression that it was one which bears the support and approval of the Holy See. I cannot stress enough how damaging such an impression could be. I implore you, on behalf of the countless faithful Catholics who are aware of the magnitude of the AUSCP's threat to the faith in this country, please withdraw any and all involvement with the AUSCP. If you have any questions or concerns about the content of this letter or the attached reports, you can contact me by phone, email, or physical mail address in the contact below. If I do not hear from you within 60 days, then I will assume that you have no intention to respond. Sincerely yours in Christ, Michael Hitchborn. So, I sent that letter back in the beginning of December. It was December 10th. And here is proof of receipt of that particular letter. So I sent it certified mail. I read to you what I wrote to him. I also included several of our reports on the AUSCP. So all of that went to Archbishop Pierre. He has it. He's been sitting on it. He has not responded. And so we are going to go public with the letter that we wrote. Unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where there has to be public pressure. We're going to have to get other lay faithful involved, sending him letters, sending him calling the office of the nunciature, and asking him to withdraw from participation in the AUSCP event. So that's something that's going on now. It really is not a surprise that he would be participating in this, but it does give a certain appearance of authority and acceptableness to have the apostolic nuncio participate in the event. Other speakers, by the way, at this thing include John Carr, the former executive director for justice, peace, and human development at the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. So he's going to be there. John Carr, by the way, if you haven't seen the, well, let me see. I put together a basic report on John Carr, and I'm going to go ahead and post it here because I think that you will get a lot out of it when you see it. Um, Let me just call it up. Here we go. So, John Carr is the old executive director of the White House Conference on Families. And here is that article. I think you'll find it very enlightening. As the executive director for the White House Conference on Families, he put his name to the official recommendations to Congress, asking Congress to expand access to contraception and even abortion. Now, of course, his excuse was, well, that was way down the list of priorities. It wasn't really a focus. Well, I'm sorry, but what you handed in actually recommended to Congress the expansion of contraception and abortion. It doesn't matter how far on the list it is. You put your name to it. You turned it into the Senate or into the House of Representatives. So you did this. He was the executive director of Justice, Peace, and Human Development at the USCCB for, I think, almost 20 years or even over 20 years. So he was a fixture there, absolutely pushing the envelope with regard to um, working with the enemies of Christ. He was overseeing the Campaign for Human Development, and so you know exactly where that goes. So he's one of the speakers at the AUSCP's annual event. The other one is Sister I Got a Pen from Barack Obama for helping to push Obamacare, Carol Keehan. Sister Carol Keehan was the president of the Catholic Health Association, where she was earning a cool $1 million a year, and helped very much in the push to get Congress to pass Obamacare. So she single-handedly gave us Obamacare. So she's going to be at this thing. So you've got John Carr, you've got Sister Carol Keehan, and now the Apostolic Nuncio at the AUSCP event. This is a rather serious thing to have all of those people involved. So we'll be covering it and we'll be talking about it. And you're the first to know that we're going to be publishing the letter that we just sent to Archbishop Christophe Pierre. There will be a call to action asking everybody to please send him letters, call the office, ask him not to participate in the AU event. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you about. The second thing I wanted to mention is that, speaking of open letters, most of you are probably aware we did send an open letter to Bishop Barry Nestout down in Richmond, Virginia. And the focus of it was Bishop Nestout's permission to allow a female Episcopalian to be ordained and consecrated as a bishop in a Catholic church. And Bishop Nestout referred to these things as ordinations and referred to her as bishop elect. So it caused a lot of consternation and a lot of issues. And I wound up sending him a letter. He didn't respond to the letter. So here is the open letter that I put together that anybody can sign on to. We are trying to get 1,000 signatures. We have about 750. We just need 250 more. So if everybody here has not already signed this letter, please do sign the letter. It's right there. And what I'm going to do is take that letter and I am going to go to the chancery and hand deliver the letter with all of the signatures to Bishop Nestout as soon as we have 1,000 signatures. So if you have signed it, please forward it on to as many people as you can. Spread it all over social media, whether it's on Twitter or on Facebook. Get the word out there. We just need about 250 more signatures. And once we have them, I'm going straight to Richmond and I'm going to hand deliver the whole kit and caboodle. So there's that. Now let's get to the topic for the evening. And before we get to the topic for the evening, because this is a good breaking point, if you would like to, where do you find the letter? The letter is right there at the link that I just posted. So lepantoin.org/an open letter to Bishop Nestout. So that's where you can find the letter. There's a form at the very bottom. So you got to go all the way to the bottom to sign it. Anyway, just a quick segue. If you like what you're seeing and you want to be a participant in the Lepanto Institute's Inner Circle, there's the link right here, lepantoin.org/inner-circle. And then you can just follow that link and follow the process and join us. It's $10 a month. Very, very cheap, less than $1 a day. All right. So the topic for this evening, and I've been thinking about this for a very long time. This is part of a talk that I gave a couple of years ago. And it recently kind of came up in conversation as I was talking to a few people. The phrase toxic masculinity kept coming up. And at this late state in the game, a lot of times we can just kind of, laugh about it and say, ha ha, those dumb liberals, and they just use this stupid language. But let's take a look at what the language means, where it came from, and what the effect was. What should we add at the bottom with comments? You can add comments if you want. It's not necessary. Just basically, if you wanted to throw in your own personal message to Bishop Nestout, that would get printed out with the letter. That's all. So last year there was a lot of internet buzz about the phrase toxic masculinity. And then almost as quickly as it rose up, the phrase seems to have dropped out. But it actually had an intended result, and it achieved the result. And the result was that it cooled off all of the hot topics that men were getting involved in. So you have men that were being involved in the abortion debate, and you had men getting involved in the issues of homosexuality within the Catholic Church. And men were becoming very enraged and very upset about all of these abuse stories that were coming out. And because the men were getting involved and the men were making statements, suddenly we started hearing about toxic masculinity. And it was a phrase, I think, that even some prelates in social media, I know that Father James Martin S.J. Used that phrase at least once. So we started to hear about it. And then all of a sudden, the topics kind of died down and people started talking about other things. So what it achieved was that it shifted attention away from what was being discussed. And a lot of times you have, I don't think that any of the real men were shamed. It's just that it shifted the conversation. And it wasn't long after that we started to get an explosion of these drag queen story hours. And we started to get a steady drumbeat of this new definition of masculinity. And what were we seeing in commercials? I'm going to get into that. If you turn on your TV, there are several examples of what Hollywood would like for us to believe is actually manhood, or what the networks would like us to believe is actually manhood. First, you have the bumbling dad. He's the buffoon that winds up being the butt of everyone's jokes. He can't do anything right. His wife is smarter than he is, if not more annoying. And he always winds up into some kind of trouble. Usually of his own making. And then, of course, the rest of the family has to try and pry him out of it. The most common examples I could think of this are Homer Simpson, Ed Bundy from Married with Children, Chester Riley from The Life of Riley. These men are completely incapable of any kind of home repair, mechanical maintenance, home maintenance, and they can barely hold down a job. And even when they're sitting around not drinking beer, they're watching TV, lying their way out of mischief, and goofing off when they should be working. And in between commercials for those shows, we get bombarded with another kind of man. And we get examples of self-absorbed, pleasure-seeking man who sits around and plays video games. He fills his man cave with sports paraphernalia. He's hooking up with pretty girls at bars, spray their unnaturally sculptured bodies with aromatic chemicals, and they wind up spending a lot of time looking at their phones and playing the latest game, engaging in social media, or watching sports and television, all while ignoring the real world around them. Those are the kinds of images that you get in the commercials. And it's rapid fire, one after another. Just throw on a TV set for about 20 minutes and you'll see a whole string of commercials just like that. And then in all of those examples, both in the television shows and in the commercials, there are portrayals of men who exude manliness. They're the stereotypical man to be shunned, pitied, and derided because he represents the typical man. And of course, everybody's heard the phrase, such a typical man. You know, there's a reason for that. Well, then you have the untypical man. And this is the guy who is portrayed as the hero. His virtues tend to be in direct proportion